Hi, fifth graders. We are looking at Planting the Trees of Kenya, a story by Wangari Maathai. Wangari Maathai grew up in the hills of central Kenya, so that's our setting, central Kenya. But her setting does change in a little bit. When she was growing up, we find that they had rich, fertile soil. You see the illustration here of all the nice growth and the river running through here, fresh water. And they tell us about this sacred fig tree. Sacred meaning something that they would hold valuable. And it even says that they didn't take the sticks back for kindling at all. They just left that fig tree alone. And she would go, and it's kind of giving us a little history about what the life was like when she was younger, because it talks about the glistening frog eggs, like beads, and nice simile there. Glistening frog eggs, trying to gather them like beads into necklaces. And it just shows the richness even in the water. She's a native Kenyan, but she leaves Kenya to do what? She goes to school, right? She goes to college. She's going to college where the Benedictine nuns in America would run this college. And so she's away in America, and she's learning. And as she's there at this college, she studied biology, and the focus was always not on herself, but on the world. The thought process, the education there was, how can you make the world a better place? Think about the world, think about others, kind of like we do today, right? Now, the next part here's 5 years later when she comes back to Kenya. You can see how's the land. Yeah, it's not looking good. No, we find that there's no fig tree anymore. The stream dried up. A lot of the trees are cut down, and they have these big plantations now where they're making what? Do you remember? Yeah, they're making tea to sell. People can't take care of their families anymore. They're buying stuff to take care of their families at stores, and that stuff's not so good, and it was expensive. And so the kids and the grown-ups were weak and sickly. They weren't healthy like they had been when she left. And so we see this big change between Kenya when she left 5 years before and when she comes back. Now, the women would always go and get the drinking water and the food, and they had to walk sometimes a long time to find that, sometimes for hours before they'd find a tree to find some kindling. With no trees, there was no soil, because the topsoil disappeared by the wind. There was no shade. And so all these things were causing problems. And the women were complaining. They complained about no food. They complained about the polluted water. And the land was suffering because they didn't take care of it. Well, they were blaming others like the government and other people, and Wangari, not joining into this, was not a complainer. Wangari said, basically, they had to realize they were part of the problem, that they were cutting down these trees of Kenya. And she said that once they see they are part of the problem, they can become part of the solution. So she gives them the idea of planting some trees. Why not plant trees? And so what Wangari does is she educates these women. These women are not educated. They didn't go to school. Their main job is taking care of their family. And Wangari shows them how to collect the seeds, how to plant them, and how to nurture them. And water was scarce, so sometimes they'd have to build these big holes or dig these big holes, go down there, get the water, and then bring them back up. And that's what you see in this picture right here. The women building a big hole getting that water, bringing the buckets back up. And so Wangari tries to plant an early nursery in her backyard, and it fails. Almost all seedlings died. But she doesn't give up, and she's a good example for the women. And nobody really took them seriously because they didn't know how to read and write, but they didn't give up either. And they started taking care of things. And they could do that right there and then. They didn't need the government to help them. They could start changing their own lives. And they were proud of it. And as the kids and the husbands saw this, they also ended up admiring it and even joining in and helping as the growth started happening. But Wangari didn't stop there, did she? So this picture is teaching who about the seedlings. She got seedlings into the hands of the children. So at school she takes and she gets seedlings into the hands of the children. But not just the children. They go on to explain that she also gave the seedlings to the inmates in prison and showed them what to do with it. And she gave them to the soldiers too. And explained to them that, you're protecting your country, but your country is disappearing because of what is happening. And how they should basically be a good soldier, not just protecting the people, but also making the land, protecting that seedling and growing that seedling and protecting the trees and the other the whole environment, not just the people. And then it just kind of jumps ahead 30 years after Wangari had begun this movement. There had been over 30 million trees planted and still keeps going. And she says when that topsoil does get exposed, it's crying out, the earth is crying out saying, please clothe me in that greenness. And then we see like how it is over on this side, all the greenness and all the people that have come to help, right? Making a difference and planting one tree at a time. And that was the other thing she had taught them, that if they cut one tree down, then to plant two. And they could finally feed their families. And the work of planting is what united the women. It made a united feeling of a community as they all tried to make a difference. So in this, I hope you learned a little bit about Wangari and her life in Kenya, and how leaving her life in Kenya to go to college and learning all she did and bringing it back to her community made such a difference. The essential question here, what impact do our actions have on our world? Her action of coming back and teaching Kenya how to make a difference, and how one person at a time and one little action at a time, and it changed their environment and their life. So I hope you enjoyed the story. You have a test on this. You may use your book, both books, remember. Go back through it. Make choices that are either, eliminate choices and go through your answer key, and make sure you check your answers as you go. Okay? Have a great day, and we will talk to you later.